Hi, my name is Julie Bozzi, and the book I read was The Lucifer Effect by Philip Zimbardo. In this book, Zimbardo goes into lots of detail about the Stanford prison experiment he performed in 1971. And in the beginning of the book, he majorly focuses on just this experiment. He explains how he aimed to understand the development of norms and effects of roles, labels, and social expectations in a simulated prison environment. And this is something that he can very, very effectively find out with his experiment, in which he had a group of prisoners and guards which were randomly assigned, and the men were screened before entering the prison to make sure that they were good people. And it was found that within just days and into the experiment, the guards started abusing, mocking, and being so harsh to the prisoners that the prisoners were so mentally distressed that they had to start leaving. And throughout the course of the experiment, 5 prisoners left. And this just goes to show how much distress they were really under, and in the end, the prison experiment had to be ended over a week early, so it was 6 days in total because of how much distress the prisoners were under. And that just shows how the good people, which were the guards, did such bad things to them that they just could not handle it mentally. So the conditions that Zimbardo created in his experiment really push these men to do such evil things. And although they were good people, the situation still had them doing such terrible things to the prisoners. And this is what Zimbardo really focuses on in the second portion of his book. So because of the changes in character that happened to these boys who attended the prison experiment, he came up with 3 key ways to identify such transformations in human character. 1 is dispositional. This is the personality traits of the individual who is doing this evil behavior. And this is what Zimbardo considers the bad apples, the people who are just bad, and that is why they do bad things. But this is not what was occurring in his experiment. So he needed to figure out what was truly happening to make these guards do such bad things to these boys who they knew they were innocent. And he brings this to the situational factor, the external factors which are going on around them. And lastly, he has the systemic factors. And this is the broad influence which allows the external factors to be set in place, which are things like political influences, economic influences, and legal power. And in the case of the experiment, that is legal power. So on top of his own Stanford prison experiment, which supports his theory that the situation causes good people to do evil things, Zimbardo uses the Sandy Milgram shock experiment as evidence for his claim. And this experiment was an experiment where people were split into groups of teachers and learners, and the teachers were told to shock the learners each time they got an incorrect answer. And most people, before they went into the experiment, would say, oh, I'll never go up to the highest level of shocking someone because I'm a good person. I won't hurt anyone like that. But come to find out, the results of the experiment were that 90% of the people went to the highest shock level of 450 volts. And this just goes to show how the experiment situation that the people set up, the researchers set up, allowed the participants to do such bad things to the learners. For the third main idea of the book, Zimbardo really wants to take a positive outlook on this idea that the situation can really affect what decisions a person is going to make. And what he is saying is that the same situation which allows people to do such evil things can also drive someone to become a hero. But there's one key difference. What makes you do something evil is that you are going to conform with what everyone else is doing. But to become a hero, you have to be someone who is willing to stick out and do something that is completely different from everyone else. And that takes a lot of courage. So what Zimbardo really wants to drive home is that we should be changing the atmospheres around the children that we have and making sure that they know that they are people who are capable of becoming heroes. Because right now we have their models for a hero as superheroes, which are people who have supernatural powers. But they know that this is something that they don't have the capability to have. So what we should be doing is modeling this for these children and making it obvious to them that they too can be a hero just by making a positive decision in a maybe different direction, but they have to know that that's okay. And not only in children, but for everyone. And applying these ideas that Zimbardo mentions in the end of his book, that we can create a way to take a situation and a outlook which has very negative influences over us, that makes us conform in a negative direction to do evil things. We can take a spin on that and make these people willing to stick out from the crowd, but in order to do good things. And this is something really important, because in society, everyone has this innate want to belong. And so if everyone else is doing this bad thing in the situation that they are in, as humans, we are more likely to go and do that thing. But if we make changes to the way that we are perceiving this idea of conformity, then we can in turn allow people to make better decisions and not be pushed to do evil things. And this way we can go in the opposite direction of the Lucifer effect and have the situation drive us to do good things. And this is really important because we have lots of bad things going on in the world right now. And it is really important that we see that any normal person can be a hero and stand up and help with these things that are going on. The first quote I chose is, "Evil consists in intentionally behaving in ways that harm, abuse, demean, dehumanize, or destroy innocent others, or using one's authority and systematic power to encourage or permit others to do so on your behalf. In short, it is knowing better but doing worse." I thought this quote was really ironic because exactly what it is saying is what happened and what Zimbardo allowed to happen during the prison experiment. And I just thought that was really interesting that his own situation, which he created, still had this effect on him where he was subconsciously doing something that was evil. He allowed these prisoners to go under such stress from the guards that they became so depressed and anxious that they had to leave the experiment. And this was something really powerful because it showed just even the person who creates the situation can be affected by it. And that's just how powerful something like this is. So the second quote I chose is, "Heroism can be defined as having 4 key features. A, it must be engaged in voluntarily. B, it must involve a risk or potential sacrifice such as the threat of death, an immediate threat to physical integrity, a long-term threat to health, or the potential for serious degradation of one quality of life. C, it must be conducted in service to one or more other people or the community as a whole. And D, it must be without secondary extrinsic gain anticipated at the time of the act." And I chose this quote because it really shows that a person who is doing a heroic act is taking a big risk. And this really shows why it's so much easier for a situation to push you to do something evil than it is for the situation to push you to do something heroic. And because of this, that's why you see a situation like the prison experiment pushing these people to do such evil things rather than someone taking a stand and going against what is happening in that situation. And it really encompasses why all these things are happening the way they are, because of the situation and the system.